Hello everybody, hope you're doing alright, I hope you're keeping safe and I hope you're keeping sane. Now for today's video I am putting on my motivational speaking hat, my positive thinking hat, and yeah, hopefully it will help some of you guys and girls who are in recovery or just considering giving up gambling or realising that you've got a bit of a problem with gambling and you maybe need to lay off it. I just want to talk you through my experiences, particularly in the early stages of recovery, and my feelings around feeling like a bit of a fraud, to be completely honest, and feeling like maybe I didn't really belong in the position I was in, and how I sort of overcame that in time. I'll try and make it a bit clearer as I go through, but firstly, just want to say hi, hope you're keeping safe, hope you're keeping sane. Thank you to everyone again who continues to support the channel, really very much appreciated. If you're new around here, then welcome, watch this video. If you like it, you think it's useful, you think it's helpful, you think it's interesting, then all I ask is you hit the subscribe button or like or comment or do any of that great YouTube stuff once you've watched it. So, I had many false starts when it comes to gambling recovery, and that in itself should be a little bit of reassurance to anyone who's come here off the back of a lapse or a relapse or whatever. It's not always plain sailing. However, every time that you try, you get one step closer to that time where you try and you succeed. Now, of course, there are lots of practical things you can do. There are lots of changes you can make to your life, blocks and all the rest of it, which I've spoken about time and time again, and you'll find more information about in my previous videos. However, as someone who gambled every day, the first day felt like a bit of a success. Second day, great success. The longest I've been without gambling for quite some time. However, a strange thing happened, and it wasn't something that I really expected. By the time I got maybe 2-3 weeks gamble-free, 3 weeks into a recovery, I started to feel like a bit of a fraud. And the reason I'm telling you this is because maybe you'll experience these feelings too. I started to feel like, you know, yes, my recovery is going well, but I know that I'm still a gambler. I know that I'm still an addict, and you know, some advice from certain sources will tell you that you are never able to shake this off. And at that point, you do run the risk of somehow conceding to the addiction. I certainly know I did. I almost thought in the back of my head, well, you know, yes, it's great that I'm 3 weeks without gambling. That's amazing. It's the longest I've been in my adult life. But I know that inside I will always be an addict, and therefore it's only a matter of time before I concede defeat and I go back to my old ways. So I sort of started feeling like a bit of a fraud. I was there sort of, you know, in my natural habitat of the local pub, and I was watching other people gamble, and I felt a real mix of conflicting emotions. You know, yes, there was the gambling urges that were bubbling under the surface that wanted to have a go myself, but there was also this slightly overriding, dare I even say, sort of smug schadenfreude kind of feeling that, well, I'm glad that's not me. And yeah, that feels a little bit disingenuous. It feels a little bit hypocritical given the amount of time, money, and of my bits of my life that I'd waste on this horrible addiction. But it's how I felt, so, you know, I'll be honest. And actually, the feeling that I'm glad that's no longer me should be something to be embraced. Of course, you don't necessarily want to sit there and watch someone else spunk their wages on a Friday evening. But, you know, it's unavoidable that if that does happen, you're going to think, well, at least that wasn't me. I'm glad for once that wasn't me. But then it hit me, this pang of feeling like a fraud. I thought, well, I'm a fraud. This isn't me. I'm not this clean living, you know, gamble-free, healthy, you know, superior being. And I always say this in all my videos. I don't in any way speak from a position of a high horse, or indeed I'm not telling you what to do and I'm not telling you the right way to go about things. But this feeling of sort of almost purity, this feeling of escape from this addiction made me feel like a fraud, because in my head, the gambling bug in the back of my head was telling me, well, it's only a matter of time before you go back to this. So why are you feeling so happy? Why are you feeling so smug? And dare I say, and I'm not saying it's a positive emotion, but why are you feeling this sort of sense of gratitude that it's someone else and not you? And if you do get that feeling, and if you do get a feeling of, like I say, satisfaction is possibly not the word, but certainly relief, when you observe others gambling and you observe others, dare I say, losing, then just be assured that maybe not everyone experiences this, but certainly you're not the first, because I did. You know, even if there were people that I knew, even if there were other regulars in the pub, and I saw them play the fruit machines and I saw them lose, I couldn't help but feel this sort of settled, almost calm feeling inside of myself. Well, at least that's not me, because you know the psychology of what's going on in that person's head. But that, in and of itself, will make you feel like a bit of a fraud. Someone posted a very good quote underneath one of my recent videos, and funnily enough, it was actually the motivation to make that video, although I didn't reference it directly. And it came from Mark Manson, although I also think I've heard Chris Williamson talk about it. And that's how you can't fake motivation and you can't fake bravery. Because if you do something despite being afraid of it, then that's bravery. And if you do something in spite of not being motivated to do it, then you have in some way motivated yourself to do it. Now, I've probably butchered that entirely, and I'll probably make a separate video about that because I think it's a really interesting theory. But I'll extend that and say that you are not able to fake a recovery. You can't pretend to make a recovery unless, of course, you're lying to people. If you have gone a day, a week, a month, a year, whatever, without gambling, when previously you were gambling very, very regularly and to a damaging extent, you may feel like a bit of a fraud because, you know, you've been told, you've been conditioned to think, well, once an addict, always an addict. But you can't fake that recovery. If you haven't gambled for a month, you haven't gambled for a month. You are a month successful in recovery. And that's the important thing to remember. You cannot fake a successful recovery. If you're in recovery, you're doing well. So just stick with it, keep it up. If you lapse, get back on the horse, start again. Even if each recovery doesn't last a lifetime, then it's got to be better than accepting that you are a fraud, succumbing to the gambling demons that are telling you you're a fraud and that you will always be an addict, and going back to your old patterns of behaviour, going back to your old ways, and going back to creating more and more damage, more and more harm, breaking down more relationships, losing more money, creating more debt, and basically digging yourself further into a hole that will, over time, become harder and harder to claw your way out of. I really hope I've explained that well. Like I say, when you quit gambling, for any length of time, you will go through a whole range of emotions. And the ones that will hit you first are the positive ones. And funnily enough, for me, it felt like the self-doubt came a little bit later on. And whilst I will never, let's be honest, I will never say too many bad words about GA and about the GA and 12-step principle, because I think it's helped a huge amount of people and it has invariably saved lives. I do have a fundamental problem with this idea that we should always consistently label ourselves as gamblers for the rest of our lives, even if we maintain a successful recovery for years and years. I'll leave you just with something else, but another quote and another point that I'm going to butcher from someone who's, again, far smarter than me. I think Alan Carr put in his book about recovering from alcohol, about quitting drinking, the easy way to quit drinking, or whatever it was called, that it's a very, very strange situation around AA, where someone who goes out every weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, whatever, gets absolutely plastered, but doesn't drink during the week, is considered fine, maybe considered a binge drinker, but isn't considered an alcoholic. But we consider someone who hasn't touched a drop of alcohol for 30 years an alcoholic because they used to have a problem with it. So if you apply that mentality to gambling recovery, you will always feel like a fraud. Now, of course, you should always be cautious. You should always be on your guard and be vigilant against the gambling demons, which I don't think you can ever completely kill. But you can get them to a level of sedation where you are allowed to crack on with your life. You are allowed to be happy. And you are allowed to get that feeling of, well, at least it's not me, when you experience other people's gambling and you observe other people's losses. Gambling is everywhere. You are not going to be able to avoid it for the rest of your life. You're not going to be able to avoid observing other people, and be that people in the pub talking about their sports betting, watching someone play a fruit machine, or stuff here on YouTube. You're not going to be able to avoid observing gambling in a greater capacity. So just allow the emotions that you have, the feelings that you have, be them positive, negative, or conflicting, just allow them to wash over you, to go through you, and just be happy for what you are and what you're doing, and plow on with your recovery, and, you know, just just look after yourselves. Stay safe, stay sane, I guess, is the only advice as always. Take care, guys. Speak to you soon. All the best, and have a great day.